especially as a woman in that moment, you feel like you've let them down, because there was a new life that was started in you, and you weren't able to hold on to it.
That reality just hit us and hit me in the face, going, we don't have a baby anymore. And it was I was just numb. I didn't know what to do, what to think. I knew that Beth was devastated, and I was like, I don't think devastation was my emotion at that time. It was just going, I don't know what to do. I couldn't compute it, I couldn't calculate it in my head, and it was just a really strange time.
We are both one of 4 children. I'm the youngest of 4, he's third in 4 children. So we're used to being around a lot of siblings, and it was something that was important to both of us. When we were first married, we had those conversations of how many kids will be like. Well, if we had 3, then 1 sometimes left out. If we have 2, well, that's not enough. So we should probably go for 4 at least. And that was a conversation we had right from the beginning, and we agreed on. But we thought, okay, we're going to wait a couple of years before we start trying. And thinking as well, the nature of our families, the fact that we're both from big families, that it would just kind of be quite easy, really.
Yeah, when she got pregnant, it was incredible, because we were like, it was 6 months in, and we were like, amazing, brilliant. Let's, we were in a house which would have been big enough. We just felt like it was exactly the right time. It even had somebody prophesying, in so many months we can see you having a child, and we were like, this is bang on in that time frame. And we just thought, fantastic, we've arrived, this is it, God's come through, we're going to have a baby, we're going to live happily ever after, right off into the sunset.
And then the Sunday before I was due to have my scan, had started having a lot of pain going into the evening, and ended up needing to call the out-of-hours surgery, trying to find out what was wrong. And at the weekend that everything's shut, so you're going to get less attention anyway, so like, is this something we can wait? And they told us to go into the hospital.
We didn't know what was going on. I think personally, I was just, my mind didn't even go to the point of we might not, we might lose this baby. It just didn't. Maybe I didn't want to go there in my mind. But as the night wore on, we were there all night, and obviously sleep deprived as well. The reality started to hit that maybe things aren't going well.
So the next day, they've managed to find me a bed. Overnight, Phil fell asleep in a chair next to me, and we went through for a scan, and they wheeled me through in a wheelchair to go and get scanned. I was fine. I was thinking, why? Why are they doing this? Giving me a wheelchair to go through and have a scan. I'm perfectly capable of walking. There's, I think something within me in that time wanted to be able to cope. So I was a little bit annoyed about the wheelchair, but went through, sat in this waiting room surrounded by women with huge bumps, massive bumps, all these beautifully pregnant women around me, and went into the room and had a scan, and then they showed us our baby. And at this point we were 13 weeks, so we should have been able to see a recognisable baby, and there were a few cells, and baby hadn't made it beyond the 6-week mark. So at that point they say there's been a problem with implantation, and it's really common. And the nurse was so kind, because as she showed me, I already knew when I was going in the room that something wasn't right. But she showed me and she said, no, I need you to look at the screen, please. Look at the screen and see, because I need you to know that this is not your fault. I need you to know that that is your baby, but the baby's not made it. So that anything that happens after this point, there was nothing else you could do. So at that point, she had to tell me to stay still. My crying was rocking my whole body. So she was trying to hold this picture and couldn't. So we have the scan and we left the room, and that wheelchair that I hated, that I didn't want, I was so glad for. They sat me in the wheelchair and they pulled me back to the room, and I just cried. I cried and I cried.
You have this sense, and it's not necessarily spoken, it's not necessarily, it's not in your marriage vows explicitly, but you are there to provide, you are there to support, you are there to ultimately, bring children as well, and to not have that just felt like a bit of a quite emasculating as a guy, because you're there, you're kind of there going, I can't give you a child, if we thought we had one and we haven't got one, and it's just, it's just us two for now, but no kids. Yeah.
We sat on the bed in this side room that they'd given us, and I looked out at the sky, and I saw birds flying across the sky. I mean, they weren't even pretty birds. They were something common and probably quite ugly. They were sparrows or pigeons, something. But as I sat there with Phil and I, just with our arms around each other, crying, I really felt God drop into my heart the truth of Matthew 6, where he says, look at the birds of the air. See how I care for them. You are worth so much more than them. So do not be afraid. And for me, that then became a verse that became a rock for me, that throughout everything that then happened, that became a rock of the fact that God knew he was with us right in that moment where it felt like the bottom had fallen out of our world. He was right there, and he knew. But also, there were people that reached out to both of us, but especially to me in that time, and said, I had a miscarriage, but nobody knew. I wasn't able to tell anybody. I wasn't able to grieve openly. Nobody knew. And was able to walk with people in their grief in that season. And it's not a nice honour to have, but it is an honour and a privilege to be welcomed into someone else's grief. You don't want to be able to understand what somebody's going through, but when you do and you're able to walk with them, that is a real privilege.
Conceiving and then not having a baby, there was disappointment there, but I think that it just felt that God was preparing us for a new chapter. We'd made a move down the country, and we were part of a different church, and we didn't specifically know it at the time, but we just felt that maybe this is something that God is teaching us to, come alongside other people, to support them. But what we didn't know until a few months down the line was that God was preparing us to up and move.
So we decided to go to Cambodia. But even deciding to go, we were still on the journey of trying to have a baby. We weren't in the realms of being able to go to the GP down the road. We didn't have a GP. We were in a foreign country. We were in a very different system. But again, something happened there. And again, there was a moment where that could have defined us or not defined us. And we decided that was the right place for us to be. So we carried on going. And then we fell pregnant again. We were back in Cardiff at that point.
It was at that point that it really, the bottom fell out of our world kind of thing, because it was just, we tried again, we'd miscarried again, and the question started to turn around and say, is this ever going to happen?
And when there's multiple experiences of loss, it compounds, and that can become really hard as well.
We avoided certain conversations because we knew they were just going to be painful, and we hadn't really spoken about other alternatives. We were just kind of maybe even still in denial that this was a bigger problem, and almost resigned to the fact that, okay, maybe God's not wanting us to be parents.
So we decided that we were just going to relax, we were just going to be ourselves, we were just going to spend some time just being together and not worry about these things, not make any big decisions, not rush into anything. And Philip planned a holiday for the end of September, which goes over my birthday, and we'd gone away for a short break to Verona. We came back from the holiday, still not pregnant actually on the holiday, but very shortly after we fell pregnant.
There's been so much prayer behind us at this time, and we we didn't want to kind of, we were very aware of not letting our minds go straight to the whole, yes, let's start planning everything, because we just didn't know.
So that first scan was really emotional because I could see this baby, but previously my babies hadn't made it beyond this point. And then at 8 weeks we saw her, and she'd grown. She looked like a little rabbit on the little scan. She looked really, just looked different, but she'd grown visibly. And then we saw her at 10 weeks and she was a little person. We saw her at 12 weeks and she was growing. And then at 16 weeks we heard her heartbeat, and at 19 weeks I felt her kick, and at 20 weeks we had another scan. And then for various reasons we had more and more scans as we went on. They kept us under consultation, and we went through the beginning stages of labour that I was induced for various reasons, and my little girl was born at 5:30 in the morning on Independence Day, 4th of July.
Literally, I looked down and there she was, and I said to Beth that we've got a girl, and it was weird, but it was like, she's not just a baby, she's my baby.
And that first moment where I got to hold her, this creased little bundle of chub, and it was so many prayers answered all in one go.
We may never know the reason why we had multiple miscarriages, why we had to wait 8 years. We could quite easily go, God, we got pregnant, we've got a baby, but God forgot about us for a while. I don't believe he did. He cares about us in small ways and in big ways, and we learn stuff in the process, not just in the event. We can see the birth of a child as an amazing event, but there's a process and there's a learning curve in all that. And I think that don't belittle the days when it feels like nothing's happening, because God's doing something.
To be holding the goodness of God in your arms is like nothing else. And even that joy being so much greater because you get to share it, because you get to say, hey, when you prayed, God heard you. Thank you for your prayers. This is our miracle. There's nothing like it.